Yes, folks, hello, welcome once again to MoDXtra Games and Collectibles. I'm Chris, this is my channel. Absolute pleasure to have you with me here today. And this is the second part of my G.I. Joe Classified series coverage over this Christmas week. I'm pre-recording, so hopefully nothing happens between now and this video going out, but I've got family visiting for Christmas, so I'm not going to be around a great deal. The first installment was looking at the kind of what we do know in terms of pre-orders, what we do know in terms of render reveals, what we do know in terms of pipeline releases, and a bit of chat at the back end about some rumours, leaks that have been taking place. This video is full, like, just wish list stuff. I've got no grounds to base this on. This is just things I would like to see happen in 2026 or beyond. You know, these are just the outstanding fanboy things that I want to see happen with G.I. Joe Classified. And also, as an extra bonus, at the end of the video, we've got some most wanted unreleased characters from a few viewers as well, knocking around some valued MoDXtra Games and Collectibles viewing community members. So let's get into it and let's talk about some things that I'd like to see with G.I. Joe Classified Series 2026. Starting with number one, more female characters. Regulars around these parts will know I've been banging on about this for ages. I just feel like the line is a total sausage fest. Sometimes when I'm building displays, some of you will know that I don't have a permanent display, so I like to change it around every now and again. I'm just a bit like, oh man, it's just all fellas all the time. And I would love to see more female characters in the line. And there's a number of female characters that I've had on my wish list. I went back and had a look at some of my older wish lists that I've had knocking around since 2022. You know, so I've been waiting a long time for some of these female characters. Let me give you some examples, like Bomb Strike. I've had her on the list for ages. I think she's got an excellent aesthetic. I think she'd fit in really well with the kind of broad G.I. Joe kind of camo combat browns, but she's got enough flavor and enough character to set her apart from the crowd, and I'd be very excited to see her. Another suggestion that I've mentioned in passing on a couple of live streams, but I don't think it's been on any of my pre-recorded stuff, is the Carla Greer version of Doc. Cobra's not faring as well either. I'd love to see characters like Dr. Cassandra Knox in the mix. I've picked out I think this is Devil's Due version of the character. There's also a blue jumpsuit version. No, there's not. There's like a late 80s, early 90s blouse thing with Cassandra Knox, if I remember rightly. But something along these lines would be great, just to kind of expand the femininity of the line. We've got Dawn Moreno, which I've mentioned before, is long overdue. Such a significantly featured character in later G.I. Joe. I mean, I've got a comic book cover there, and she's splashed across the covers all the time in the IDW A Real American Hero run, and yet she's still not seen a release, which blows my mind. I'll circle back around to that idea in a minute. Characters like Firewall, and this one here is from the G.I. Joe and Transformers, I think, off the top of my head. But there's different iterations of Firewall. There's a great Firewall that I liked the characterization of in the IDW continuity, although I don't think that version would make a great action figure. But characters like Firewall, loads of folks have said Mara. You know, circling back round to the Sunbow cartoon, there's you know, just as an example of a female character that could be plucked out of Sunbow. Another one popular with Real American Hero comic fans is Dr. Sidney Biggles Jones. I'm going to circle back round to sort of this Ninja Force 90s era a little bit later on. In fact, Scarlett's there. You could just hear in one of the screenshots I've managed to find out of the comic book. But yeah, an interesting look character with the white coat. Give her a big, like, ridiculous 90s style gun, whatever. Just really move the female character representation in the line. And then finally, another one I mentioned before is Chameleon, the Skybound design. I think she looks really badass. She's an awesome character. Get a head swap on there with the fully masked version of the character. Nice, really powerful looking long rifle, that red and black combo just to give it a splash of color. Which brings me to the next wishlist item, which is just draw some inspiration from some wider sources. I mean, it's no secret really that the Sunbow cartoon is being very well served and has been very well. Reinterpretations of classic G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero action figures has been very well served. The DIC cartoon has been very well served. And there is a sprinkle of additional characters that appeal to the more comic book driven fans, even with a little bit of Devil's Due. But it does seem, when you sort of step back and have a look at the line, that the inspiration sources are quite narrow. And I'd just like to see them kind of expand out into some other spaces. On the comic book side, I mention all the time that I loved G.I. Joe when I was a kid, or what was Action Force to me in the 80s here in the UK. Then years and years and years later, my interest in G.I. Joe was reinvigorated when I started reading IDW continuity of G.I. Joe. Really loved that line. The Cobra title with Chuckles in it was just something else. Just really, a really different take, really fresh, and very, very engaging as a more mature reader of the comic books. In fact, I'd love to get an IDW version of Chuckles in time. I then subsequently dove back and started digging into things like the Devil's Due publishing. And Devil's Due, I mean, I've chosen that issue cover precisely because it's got the Red Shadows in it. I mean, it's a reinterpretation of the Red Shadows, but it's an inroad into a batch of characters that, that could kind of expand the flavour of the line a little bit. You know what I mean? That Della Eden there, she's awesome. And obviously another opportunity for a female character. I think she's on later slides, in fact. And then the Skybound. I did a whole Skybound wish list talking about Risk, talking about Chameleon, who I've just already mentioned, the G.I. Joe interpretation of Baroness. That Mercer would probably have been better than the Mercer we got, So just drawing from the wider comic book inspirations, but also when I posted on my community page around this, there were folks saying, I came into the line with Sigma 6. It was Resolute that reinvigorated my interest in G.I. Joe, and I'd love to see characters from those as well. And there's room to kind of to them as kind of Pulse exclusives or as sublines or convention exclusives. They've done like Cold Slither, which was quite a niche release for a batch of customers who would only really be specifically interested in that. I don't see why they couldn't do the same, like a Sigma 6 box set or something. What's the other new one that's Renegades, Diago Renegades, for example? Have you wanted some specific characters from me, from the IDW continuity? I'd love to see Crake. There's two versions of the character. He has a transformation partway through the series when he takes over the Cobra Commander mantle, but I think that's like a really like crazy Cobra Commander look. I'd love to see the suited twins. I'd love to see the IDW continuity crystal ball. I've said that a bazillion times. There's Della Eden and the Red Shadows. I'd love for them to dip into the Devil's Due stuff for the Red Shadows. And then Resolute, one character that stands out to me that I've always liked the look of is Cobra Troopers. I love that kind of very gritty, very real vibe about them. But of course, that's not an exhaustive list. That's just my personal choices. But I know that there's viewers out there who would in that. So there we go. Wider inspiration choices. They're dipping very heavily into the vintage figures, dipping very heavily into the cartoons, but I'd like to see them kind of expand out a little bit more and cater to their audience members who have entered G.I. Joe fandom from different spaces. And in fact, a bit later on, one of my viewers talks about the live action movies. I mean, we'll get him some help. He's only young. You'll get that joke later. That's a reference, little in joke. But anyway, on to my third thing. Playsets and expansion packs. So they've started dabbling. We saw the Portaloo, 2 iterations of that with the Cobra. Can't even remember what the actual title of it was, or the Steel Core Fortification. We've also seen the sort of Bivouac set that's been included as part of the Haslab whole package stuff. So they started to dip their toe in the water. Now, I don't know how well this has actually gone for them. I'm not sure the Cobra and Steel Core Portaloos have done all that well, to be honest. Correct me if I'm wrong, although I did hear someone say the other day that the Cobra one was hard to find. Surprises me. I've got one in a box down there that I've chosen not to open, but I'd be interested in seeing more in the playset space. Maybe not the Portaloos, but certainly the Bivouac, a later release where it's maybe in a jungle camo version. It's not throwing as much stuff, so it's still a bit special for no cap backers and stuff. But then there is a deep history of playsets and expansion sets. I've just plucked a few out. Yojo.com just had a flick through and picked a few out that I remember from my childhood. Like the Watchtower. The Watchtower is like, not having the Watchtower is like leaving money on the table. It's like exiting the room without picking up the cash, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? The Outpost Defender, which, they've already done the sandbags. They're like a quarter of the way there. But with some weapon crates and the corrugated iron roof on a kind of gun emplacement. Stuff like the forward observer unit with the little camping tent and the mortar gun and stuff. And like I say, they're already part of the way there. We've seen the mortar with the Steeler and what's his face 2-pack. You know, that other dude. Jesus, who have we had already? Zap? No. God almighty. While I'm on the subject, I'm talking about expansion packs. I've said before, they really could just start throwing together some hand swap packs, some weapon kits, some weapon packs, you know, put it in a crate, give us just a batch of M16s and MP5s, you know, the kind of core classic US military weapons. I'd love to deck out me Big Ben with a proper old school 80s looking MP5. Is it an MP5? I'm not good with the guns. I think it's an MP5. I tend to know stuff that appears in movies a lot. Most of you will know. But you know, weapon packs or hand swap packs, or even like you know, upgraded heads and hands for characters we've already got. I'd be up for that as well, and I think many of you would be interested in kind of seeing something like that. But we know it works. We know people are interested in that. Like Valorverse is doing really well out of the weapons packs. Fresh Monkey Fiction are doing head and hand expansion packs for characters that already exist, and people are buying them. They are a part of the collector experience that help us lean into our desire to kit bash or mix and match stuff around for different types of displays. So playsets and expansions packs, something I've had on the wish list before. I'm not letting it go, even though we have had the Portaloos, because I just don't think they're quite what I meant. And bigger. You know, Lenny has said in the past that they're not adverse to doing some sort of base setup for a Haslab or something, and we've also seen that work. Or have we seen that work? But I know Star Wars has done stuff in that space. So, yeah, playsets and expansion packs. Right, I'm going to stop banging on about that now. The next one is Haslab Retros, reissues of Haslab characters as retro releases. Before I carry on, these pictures were supplied to me by some Joe Bros over on the Frontline Discord. Bobby Dubs coming in with the great work there with Wild Bill and a ripcord there being saved from a parachute mishap. Then SES Dog and my man Merciless Van D with the Wild Weasel there. Thank you very much, gents. Wonderful photograph work. Really, really pleased. But yeah, these 4 characters in particular are very high on my wish list as Haslab characters that are high on my wish list as retro card back re-release. There's obviously precedent for it. We've had the Retro Cobra Commander. We've got Retro Crazy Legs on the way. So it's definitely on the list. If you watch my last installment, you'll know that there's a rumor knocking around that came our way through Destro is My Spirit Animals leak list, that there's a Wild Bill coming in 2026. That Baroness book I'm desperate for. In fact, one of my least favorite G.I. Joe classified characters is the Baroness character. I'd love to see a better quality upgrade of her. Some have speculated that because of the way the sculpt is with an elasticated neck, that it might be indicating a kind of retro cartoon look with the blue jumpsuit and the green glasses. Time will tell. And I suspect that the Wild Bill would be the blue jumpsuit with the yellow life preserver kind of look. Again, to separate it a bit. I don't know what they would do with the likes of Wild Weasel. Ripcord is obviously a Night Force version, so they would just release that as a retro in the classic colours. But yeah, on my wish list, very much would like to see some of these Haslab characters that were sort of behind that Haslab paywall for folks like me who have neither the budget nor the space to go in on Haslabs to get some of these kind of main cast characters for our collection. For me in particular, Wild Bill, featured in the Action Comics loads, and that better book, Baroness, probably top of my list. And then next on the list, I have new characters. I haven't really got any graphics for this one because obviously it's new characters, and who knows what a new character may or may not be. We've seen them sort of tickle around the edges of this, and I'd actually like to see the line lean into it harder. Wolf Spider was all right. The Grim Viper was all right. The Trench Viper was kind of cool, but it was just a repaint Alley Viper, the Ghost Viper and the Dire thing, I'd love to see that space explored more, the sort of Dire gas stuff, get Psych out. My mate Mark over at Tat Tat Toys mentioned this, like get Psych out to be the kind of counter side on the G.I. Joe side to the psychological warfare of all that, like with Scarecrow tear gas type stuff. So I'd love to see them lean into it more and perhaps get a little bit more creative and be a bit less of like new characters are built from just Frankensteining together stuff from other releases to actually, create a new character. Why not? Why the hell not? Or if you're going to go down a bit of a route, like with let's expand out Crystal Ball, or if they do go into the space with, I've not mentioned him yet, but I am about to, like Cesspool and the Toxo Vipers. Is there room for something there? Or I don't know, just this idea that the new characters are being built as just sort of Frankenstein monsters of other figures to create their new characters out of is fine. Like I say, it's worked with the Ghost Viper, but I'd like to see them lean into it a bit more, get a little bit more creative, get a little bit more kind of out there. The Ghost Viper at least had a kind of new helmet, to give it its own personality. So yeah, there you go, new characters. But there are some specific characters that have not come up. I mentioned Cesspool already, so let's take a bit of recorded on that. And then finally, just revisiting my previous wish list, as I mentioned before, I have to confess that I have been well served by the line. I know it sounds like I've listed off a lot of stuff there, but there have been numerous wish list items that I've said I'd like to see, and they've arrived. A retro-looking Flint, got it. Mainframe, he came. Crystal Ball, got it, although I wanted the IDW one, but I love one we got. Law and Order, got it. Monkey Wrench, got him. Lifeline, on his way. I've actually been pretty well served in terms of wish list. And some of the other stuff on my previous wish list, like Bomb Strike, Dawn Moreno, Crake, they're I've already mentioned them earlier along in this video, but there were a couple of characters that I have also mentioned either on wish lists or on previous live streams that I thought I'd just circle back around. I love the balmy shit. I love the crazy shit, and so the weirder, the brighter coloured, the more wonderful for me. And so Cesspool has been on my list for a while. I must confess, not a character I was a big fan of when I was a kid, but then in my older years, I'm just like, yeah, I'd love to see what Classified do with that guy. You know what I mean? With a couple of Toxo Vipers in the mix as well. I mentioned the Ninja Force Scarlet before as well. I mean, broadly speaking, I'd like to see Chabang and Edo and Dojo. I loved all those kind of brightly coloured ninja characters when I was like 10 years old. But in particular, the Ninja Force Scarlet, because I just feel like it represents a period of time in G.I. Joe in a certain way, in a certain style. A bit like Dr. Biggles Jones that I was referencing earlier, like with a big, crazy 90s look gun. And then, of course, Globulus, who I'm pretty confident, actually. No, I'm not pretty confident, but I would like to think that is on his way. The Cobra La thing has got a bit of momentum behind it. We've obviously seen the Royal Guard render reveal. I think Globulus may convention exclusive this year. But I've just got a bit of a tingle that tells me that's the case, which may or may not be as a result of the conversation I had with Lenny while he was here in London. I was asking him about Cobra La, and he was like, keep an eye out kind of thing. So, just a couple of kind of characters that sort of didn't fit into any of the subcategories from previous in the video, but have been on previous wish. So there we go, folks. There is my wish list. But as I mentioned before, there have been I asked for contributions from the beloved MoDXtra Games and Collectibles viewing community, and a handful of folks sat down and filmed themselves with their most wanted characters. Some interesting stuff in here, but also, before you take a look at it, just check out the quality of production that some of my viewers have got. Better than my own, which is a little bit embarrassing, but even the folks who are just filming themselves on the phone, look at the quality of framing in that. And Bobby Dubs, everyone pause and take a good look at Bobby Dubs' Dreadnoks Swamp Cabin. Fucking brilliant. But in any case, take a look at these guys, see if you share their thoughts. Some excellent contributions coming in 3, 2, 1.
Zartan and his Dreadnoks are my favorite group in G.I. Joe. And when I was a little kid, I always remember how cool Zartan was. Always made me believe when I grow up, I can be anyone that I want to be. I just need to mimic their voice. For 2026, I hope we finally get to see Thrasher and his Thunder Machine. That is the epic Dreadnought vehicle. I would also love to see Hasbro come up with a couple of new Dreadnought characters. Maybe some of the guys floating in the background of the Energon universe. I just hope even though I know it would look awesome in the Dreadnought greens and limes and teals, give that Steel Brigade helmet a rest for a second. I'm also getting excited for some of the rumored Dreadnoughts in 2026, especially that Swamp Sphere.
Hi, Chris. A character I'd love to see us get in the G.I. Joe classified line for 2026 is this guy, Airtight. I just loved this figure when I was a kid. Now, effectively, his accessory was a vacuum cleaner, but I still just loved the look of him. He had these cool yellow fatigues, which meant he really fit in well alongside Blowtorch, and I think it was that kind of helmeted look about the figure that just made him so versatile because, we mightn't have had a lot of G.I. Joe figures or Action Force figures as a kid, but we could, use this guy in other vehicles because of that helmet. He easily fit along, into an X-Wing fighter, so you were able to add him into your kind of Star Wars lore as well. I just think he's a really cool looking figure. I loved him. I can't wait for us to get him in the G.I. Joe classified line. I look forward to it. So hopefully 2026 will be Airtight's year.
Hey everyone, most wanted figure for 2026. I definitely am hoping to finish off the original 13 roster and get those guys together. I also would love to see a Don Moreno figure. I think it'd be awesome. But as I was thinking about this more, my most wanted figure for 2026 is Blizzard. Guy is freaking awesome. Plus, we got all this Arctic stuff coming. Be super fun to have him. He's one of the ones I had as a kid. I love that weird helmet he's got. Seems completely impractical, but that's sometimes just what you get with your Joes. So there you go, Blizzard. Hoping for it this year.
Hello Geek, aka Paul here. My pick is Iron Grenadier's Destro with the spoiler. Now we already have the Iron Grenadier's Troop. We have the Iron Grenadier's Bat. We have Metalhead. So I'm really looking forward to getting their leader and then continuing to build out the ranks of that faction. Last year, when I was at San Diego Comic-Con, I was talking to Lenny in the Hasbro booth, and I told him this was my most anticipated release. And he said, well, I can't confirm anything, but all I'll say is that the vintage Destro with the spoiler is on my desk right now. So there you have it. Chris, thank you so much for inviting us to be part of this. Keep up the good work with your channel, man. I'll see you guys next time, but until then, keep it geeky.
Hi, my name is Daryl, and known as Merciless Van D in some circles. Anyway, my most wanted figures for next year would be I would love to see a 3-pack of the LRP LERP of Stalker, Storm Shadow, and Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe 26. But since that is fairly unlikely, as well as any members of the October Guard being unlikely, I think my surprise most wanted figure for next year is actually Globulus. Cobra Law was okay back in the day. It was kind of cool, but with what they're doing now, I would really like to see a good Globulus figure that doesn't cost me an arm and a leg, or someone completely new to the line and some media to go along with it. Thanks a lot. Have fun, and appreciate you letting me be part of your show, Chris.
Hey guys, Trevor here, also known as Owls on the G.I. Joe Frontline Discord server. Just shooting my quick little 2026 most wanted figure for the G.I. Joe classified line. I'm a younger guy, as you can tell. A lot of the guys in the G.I. Joe group are kind of older. They got in with the comics and the cartoon. For me, it was the Rise of Cobra movie. Controversial, I know. Not everybody loved it. I thought it was cool as a kid. I think it holds up now. And one of my favorite characters in that movie was their envisioning of the Neo Viper. This is my figure from when I was a teenager. I just thought these guys were so just wicked cool in the movie. I love that metal suit, the helmet design that they gave them. Get it to focus here. I don't have a fancy tripod like some of you guys. All right, I'm working off of a cell phone. Sue me. But I just love the suit design. They're indestructible. You know, they almost couldn't kill him until Scarlet, you know, shot one through the eye with a crossbow in the movie. They don't feel pain. They don't feel fear. All that. I just love the idea of these sort of Cobra super soldiers that they created in a lab, sort of thing. Really cool guys. Love the design for the suit, and I would love to see what Lenny and the Classified team could do with this design and bring it into even a more current day in the Classified line. Incorporate a little energon, little sci-fi stuff. Love these guys. Love their pulse rifles. Love everything about them. Want to see them come forward. That's all I got. Happy holidays.
When it comes to enjoying G.I. Joe, there's only one figure left in the Classified series that I cannot live without, and that is going back to our OG-13, specifically Flash. Flash was definitely my favorite character when G.I. Joe first came out, one of the first figures I ever had, and he was my favorite until version 2 Snake Eyes come out. And that's where I think some people forget just how awesome Flash is, because they think, oh, I love Snake Eyes from the beginning. No, we did like Snake Eyes from the beginning, but we didn't fall in love with Snake Eyes until he became like pseudo ninja style with his version 2. So that's why we need the original most loved G.I. Joe figure from the OG-13, Flash, at least in my opinion.
Thanks, Chris. Merry Christmas to everyone. So my most anticipated figure for 2026. This one's a little personal-ish. It would be Zanzibar, the Dreadnought Pirate. So little backstory on that. I think it was 87. I was 10. My dad went to Cayman Islands for business, and he came back with a toy. Gave it to me. It was Zanzibar. And I was just, oh my God. And he had the skiff, a little, you know, the hammer, the spear. I was like, oh man, this is amazing. And on his file card said he was from the Cayman Islands. So I was like, yeah, perfect. So that was like one of my favorite figures. And yeah, definitely the one I'm looking forward to the most for 2026.
And just finally, in addition to that, the post where I asked for the viewer contributions had some comments down below. I don't know if these folks just saw the picture that says, you know, who's your most wanted unreleased character for G.I. Joe Classified in 2026, and didn't read the post that asked for a video submission, or just didn't want to put themselves on camera, which is also a thing. Although Lawrence is on there, and Frostbite, G.I. Joe Repro. Anyway, but taking a look there, Billy, another bombshell, the Heat Viper, Mara, another vote for Mara, Zanzibar, Iceberg, Zanzibar in the Dreadnoughts. Maybe should have been on my list, but there you go. And my man, White Vegeta, like totally full list of 10 here. The October Guard, which I'd like to see. I kind of didn't bother putting them on the list. I've got another video kind of sort of planned for that. The Renegades, Cobra Troopers, Thrasher with a Thunder Machine, Cesspool, another Cesspool vote, the Hazard Viper, Repeater Salvo, Thunder, the Arctic Dock, and the Arctic Stalker with the kayak. So just a couple more kind of votes on the board from the comments of the post as well. So thank you, everybody who submitted either a wish list suggestion or even went to the lengths of filming themselves. Always great to see you guys, and thanks for contributing. So there we go, folks. Just some fanciful fun with some wish list stuff for 2026. Please do, if you've not already, go take a look at the other installment of this sort of G.I. Joe Classified look forward two-parter that I've done. The first one is much more factual, much more factual in tone, because it is about what we can pre-order and what is render revealed already and stuff. I've got one other video coming out about things I'm excited for and anticipating in 2026 that's non-G.I. Joe Classified series related, looking at some independent action figure lines. But if this is the last video you watch before Christmas or into the new year, then I hope you have a great break. Hope you have a great festive season. Hope you have a great new year. And I'll see you all in 2026, folks. So come back for another video sometime soon. Take it easy.